Happy New Year. Today is January 1st, 2026. While everyone was celebrating New Year's, China just broke every rule of the global financial system. And most people absolutely have no idea what just happened. Here's the thing: Ripple is quietly building the infrastructure that could power the next trillion-dollar financial system. Singapore and Hong Kong are in an all out war for crypto banking dominance. In the US, they just handed Asia the keys to the kingdom. Stick around because I'm about to show you and connect the dots that mainstream financial media completely missed. Let's start with what happened literally today, January 1st, 2026. China's digital yuan just became the world's first interest bearing central bank digital currency. Why does this even matter? The European Central Bank, the US Federal Reserve, everyone agreed that CBDCs should work like digital cash. No interest ever. The reason is to prevent bank runs. If your CBDC pays interest, why would you keep money in a commercial bank? China just said, hey, we don't care about the consensus. Starting today, verified digital yuan wallets earn interest at demand deposit rates. This transforms the digital yuan from digital cash into a digital deposit money. And here's the kicker: China set up a global operations center in Shanghai to push international adoption. They're not just building domestic infrastructure, they're going completely global. Now, China is rewriting CBDC rules to compete with stablecoins globally. While the West debates, China simply executes. This makes the digital yuan competitive with yield bearing stablecoins and commercial bank deposits, a strategic move most Western analysts have dismissed as impossible. Now, let's talk about what Ripple is actually building, because this isn't about XRP price, it's about infrastructure. On December 1st, Singapore's Monetary Authority, the MAS, approved Ripple's expanded payment license. This allows essentially Ripple to scale regulated blockchain based payment services using XRP and ROUSD stablecoin across Southeast Asia. But here's what makes the difference: Singapore's Project Guardian now involves 40 financial institutions piloting tokenized assets, funds, bonds, FX settlements. Major players like Fidelity, Citibank, and UBS. Ripple isn't competing with Bitcoin for a store of value. They're building the rails that banks will actually use. Standard Charter project projects that XRP at $8 by 2026, which is where we are now. Franklin Templeton and Bitwise launched XRP ETFs with over 1.2 billion in inflows. The This is institutional adoption at scale. While Singapore is important, let me show you something even more strategic. November 27, 2025, Abu Dhabi's Financial Service Regulatory Authority, the FSRA, recognized Ripple's ROUSD stablecoin as accepted fiat reference token. for use within Abu Dhabi's global market. ROUSD hit 1.26 billion market cap within weeks. But here's the strategic angle. Ripple is now building payment infrastructure across two separate regulatory jurisdictions: Singapore in Southeast Asia and Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. And get this, Binance just secured a global license under the ADGM's framework. Now, it starts January 5th of 2026, just in a few days. Galaxy Digital is opening operations there as well. The UAE is positioning itself as the Switzerland of crypto. Ripple's strategy isn't just about one market. It's about creating redundant, regulated pathways that can't be shut down by any single government. The geographical diversification is Ripple's moat. By securing regulatory approval in multiple jurisdictions, Singapore, Abu Dhabi, Japan's partnerships, Mitsuo, SMBC, they're building resiliency against regulatory crackdowns. This is McKinsey level strategic planning, not crypto cowboy gambling. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Everyone assumes Singapore won the Asian crypto hub race, but the data tells a slightly different story. Hong Kong is pulling ahead. In 2026, Hong Kong is introducing mandatory licensing for virtual asset trading platforms under their roadmap. Previously, it was opt-in, but now everyone has to comply or leave. Here's the twist. Web3 firms are actually moving headquarters from Singapore to Hong Kong to take advantage of the new regime. Why? Because Hong Kong's regulatory clarity is now better than Singapore's case-by-case approach. Singapore has Project Guardian with 40 plus institutions. But Hong Kong has direct access to the mainland China. 25.9 trillion virtual asset market and deeper integration with the Chinese digital yuan infrastructure. The competition is not over, it's just heating up. Hong Kong's mandatory VATP, the licensing represents regulatory maturity, not restriction. By forcing compliance, they're creating a more credible environment for institutional capital than Singapore's selective approach. Hong Kong China's digital yuan connection gives them structural advantage Singapore cannot replicate. Geography matters when it comes to finance. Let me connect more dots that maybe some people may have missed. Let's back up a second and talk about tokenization infrastructure. Singapore's Project Guardian isn't just theory anymore. It's live pilots with major institutions. Fidelity, Citibank, they're testing tokenized money market funds with embedded digital FX. UBS issued a CHF 375 million digital bond. MAS also launched something called Bloom. It lets banks settle payments using tokenized deposits and stablecoins. This is the actual infrastructure that will power the next financial system. Now, connect this back to Ripple. Ripple is engaged with central banks in over 20 countries, piloting CBDs. They're providing the technology layer that sits between traditional finance, and blockchain. This isn't about replacing banks, it's about upgrading the plumbing banks use to move money globally. The real battle isn't Bitcoin versus CBDCs, it's which infrastructure layer will power tokenized finance. Singapore's Project Guardian, Hong Kong's tokenization sandbox, and Ripple's cross border payment rails are all competing to become the operating system for the next financial era. The winner captures trillions in settlement volume. Here's a question that not many people are asking. Why does Ripple need a stablecoin? RLUSD crossed 1 billion in market cap in November of 2025, one of the fastest climbs in regulated stablecoin history. But this isn't about competing with Tether or Circle for retail users. It's about a regulatory arbitrage. RLUSD is approved in Abu Dhabi. It's being tested in Singapore's regulated environment. It's also multi-chain, deployed on the XRP ledger and Ethereum. The strategic insight here is that Ripple is building a regulated alternative to USDT, for institutional cross-border payments. Banks can't touch Tether, but they can use RLUSD. This is how you build a moat in crypto, not through decentralization theater, but through institutional access and regulatory compliance. RLUSD is Ripple's strategic weapon for institutional markets, where USDT and USDC face regulatory barriers. By combining stablecoin utility with XRP's liquidity and regulatory approval, Ripple creates a complete payment stack that traditional finance can actually adopt. This is product market fit at institutional level. Now, let's talk about what the United States is not doing. The US House folded a CBDC ban into the 2026 defense bill. President Trump signed an executive order preventing federal agencies from issuing or endorsing a central bank digital currency. The official line, unelected bureaucrats can never weaponize a digital dollar to erode our freedoms. But here's the strategic mistake. While the US debates privacy concerns, China, Singapore, Hong Kong, and the UAE are building the actual infrastructure. The Genius Act regulates stablecoins but bans interest on US dollar stablecoins. Coinbase warned this hands China a major advantage, and they are right. China interest-bearing yuan can compete directly with stablecoins for international settlements. The US just unilaterally disarmed in the digital currency wars. Asia wins simply by default. The US CBDC ban reflects ideological paralysis, while geopolitical competitors execute pragmatic strategies. By prohibiting interest-bearing stablecoins and rejecting CBDCs, the US cedes leadership in digital payment infrastructure directly to Asia. This isn't about freedom versus control, it's about who sets the standards for global financial rails in the 2030s. Europe is playing a different game entirely. The European Central Bank aims for a 2027 pilot, 2029 will be the full rollout of the digital euro. But here's the problem: European citizens are terrified of surveillance. The ECB says a digital euro would complement cash, not replace it. But critics point out that once the infrastructure exists, political control becomes simply possible. One analysis called it bluntly: the ECB is pushing ahead to lead the West in CBDCs and counter China's digital yuan, but risk importing surveillance tools. Here's the opportunity here. If European citizens reject CBDCs, they'll need an alternative. That means private stablecoins, USDC, RLUSD, others simply gain market share by default. The irony is that government distrust of CBDCs might accelerate private crypto adoption in Europe. Europe's digital euro faces a legitimacy crisis that Asia CBDCs do not. China doesn't need public consent. Singapore has high institutional trust, but Europe's democratic deficit needs CBDC adoption requires overcoming significant privacy concerns. This creates a window of compliant private stablecoins to capture market share as the middle path between cash and government controlled CBDCs. Let me show you where the actual money is flowing. Franklin Templeton and Bitwise launched the XRP ETFs with 1.2 billion in inflows. Standard Chartered, a major international bank, projects XRP at $8 by 2026. In Japan, Ripple secured partnerships with Mitsuo Bank, SMBC Nikko, and Securitize Japan. These aren't crypto startups. These are regulated financial institutions integrating XRP Ledger into their operations. Post-SEC settlement, regulatory clarity has enabled institutional entry. Ripple lined up a $500 million war chest for expansion. And here's the supply crunch angle. XRP's ETFs are draining tokens from exchanges while institutional adoption increases in demand. Basic supply and demand mechanics suggest that this creates an upward price pressure. But then again, this isn't about short-term price speculation. It's about recognizing that institutional positioning signals long-term institutional adoption. Here's the big picture. Three different models are competing for the future of money. Model 1, China, state-controlled, interest-bearing, internationally ambitious. The digital yuan is a geopolitical tool as much as a currency. It enables cross-border settlements outside the US dollar system. The United States, private stablecoins, no CBDC, light regulation through the Genius Act. It relies on dollar dominance but risks ceding infrastructure control to Asia. Europe tried to build a CBDC that respects privacy while countering China and struggles with public legitimacy. Here's the insight. The winner isn't determined by technology. It's determined by which model institutions and citizens can adopt at scale. And right now, Asia is winning because they're building while the West is still debating. Now, if China's interest-bearing digital yuan gains international adoption, it creates a direct competitor 2 U.S. Treasury bills for short-term savings. That undermines dollar demand. If Ripple's infrastructure becomes the standard for tokenized cross-border payments, XRP's utility value increases non-linearly with network effects. More institutions, more liquidity, lower volatility, more institutional adoption. It's a flywheel. If Hong Kong beats Singapore for Asian crypto hub dominance, mainland China's capital gets indirect crypto access through Hong Kong's entities. That's a massive capital pool. Here's the kicker. If the US CBDC ban holds, American financial institutions might route international payments through Asian infrastructure. But that's where the rails are. These second order effects reshape the entire global financial architecture, and most analysts aren't even thinking about them. The real strategic implication here are 3 steps removed from today's headlines. Interest bearing CBDCs challenge US Treasury dominance. Network effects in payment infrastructure create winner takes most dynamics. Hong Kong's China connection could unlock the world's largest closed capital market. These compound effects explain why early positioning in this space carries an asymmetric upside, not from speculation, but from structural advantages in an emerging infrastructure. I hope that you enjoyed this session. Have a good evening and Happy New Year once again.